There's a quiet moment most men remember long after a relationship ends. It's not a fight, not a goodbye. It's a strange calm where something inside you says, "This feels different." Tonight, I want to talk about that feeling, where it comes from, and why it's often misunderstood. Stay with me, because near the end of this video, one insight tends to change how men see connection forever. And if you value thoughtful conversations like this, gently supporting the channel with a like or subscription helps more than you realize. When people hear the phrase "meant for each other," many imagine destiny, magic, or luck. Psychology sees it differently. Real connection isn't random. It follows patterns, quiet, repeatable patterns, that show up when two people are genuinely aligned. Not perfect, not problem-free, aligned. The first thing that always happens when two people are truly right for each other is a sense of emotional safety that arrives early and grows steadily. Not excitement, not obsession, safety. You feel calmer around her, not more anxious. Your nervous system settles instead of scanning for danger. You don't feel the need to perform, impress, or constantly prove your worth. You can speak more slowly. You breathe more deeply. That's not coincidence. That's biology. When emotional safety is present, the brain reduces defensive behavior. Men often confuse intensity with connection, but intensity is usually stress. Real compatibility lowers internal noise. You're not guessing where you stand. You're not overanalyzing every message. You feel grounded enough to be yourself, even when that self isn't polished. The second thing that appears is a natural respect for each other's inner world. She doesn't try to reshape you, and you don't feel the urge to shrink or exaggerate yourself to keep her interest. Differences still exist, but they don't feel threatening. You don't argue to win, you talk to understand. This isn't because both people are unusually patient. It's because when values align, the ego doesn't need to defend as fiercely. The third sign is subtle but powerful. Effort feels mutual without being negotiated. You're not counting who texts first. You're not tracking emotional debts. Both of you move toward the connection naturally, not because of fear of loss, but because presence feels rewarding. This balance creates dignity in the relationship. You don't chase, and you don't withdraw to test her feelings. You show up as you are. Many men miss this because they were taught that love must be earned through endurance or sacrifice. But healthy bonds don't demand self-erasure. They invite self-respect. And here's something important. When something is right, it doesn't rush you. It doesn't pressure you to abandon your purpose, your boundaries, or your sense of self. Instead, it quietly supports them. You become more focused, not distracted, more stable, not reactive. This is how real alignment begins, not with fireworks, but with calm clarity. And that calm is not boring, it's rare. When two people are truly meant for each other, something else always happens. Something many men overlook because it doesn't look dramatic from the outside. Conflict becomes clarifying instead of destructive. Disagreements still exist, but they don't threaten the bond, they reveal it. In unhealthy dynamics, conflict feels like danger. Your body tightens. You prepare to defend, withdraw, or appease. The goal becomes survival. But when alignment is real, tension feels different. You're still uncomfortable, but you're not afraid of being abandoned for speaking honestly. That changes everything. You don't feel the need to win an argument to preserve your worth. You can admit confusion without feeling weak. You can pause instead of reacting, and remarkably, she can do the same. This doesn't happen because both people are perfect communicators. It happens because emotional trust already exists beneath the disagreement. Psychologically, this matters deeply. When trust is present, the brain doesn't interpret conflict as rejection. It interprets it as information. That's why conversations become more productive. You're not fighting for control, you're searching for understanding. Another sign that always appears is emotional accountability. When something hurts, it doesn't get dismissed, minimized, or weaponized. Both people can say, "I didn't realize that affected you," without losing dignity. Accountability isn't humiliation, it's maturity. And when it flows in both directions, resentment doesn't have room to grow. You'll also notice that silence changes its meaning. Silence isn't used to punish or provoke anxiety. It becomes space to reflect, to calm down, to return more grounded. You don't feel panicked during pauses. You trust that communication will resume with honesty, not avoidance. There's something else subtle but profound. You don't feel confused about where you stand after conflict. You may not have immediate answers, but you don't feel emotionally erased. You still feel seen. That's not accidental. That's emotional consistency. Men who have never experienced this often mistake emotional turbulence for passion. But intensity without safety trains the nervous system to associate love with instability. Over time, that creates exhaustion, not intimacy. Real compatibility doesn't drain you, it steadies you. Another thing that always happens is that growth feels supported, not threatened. When you evolve, she doesn't pull away. She doesn't feel replaced by your progress. Instead, she's curious, encouraging, present, and you don't feel guilty for becoming more disciplined, focused, or self-respecting. This is crucial. When someone is truly aligned with you, your growth doesn't destabilize the bond. It strengthens it. You don't have to choose between love and self-development. You're allowed to have both. And perhaps most importantly, you feel emotionally oriented towards solutions, not power struggles. The relationship becomes a place where honesty leads somewhere. Not every problem is solved instantly, but nothing feels hopeless or frozen. This is what mature connection looks like. Not loud, not dramatic, but deeply stabilizing. And when you experience this once, you begin to realize how rare it is and why so many people mistake chaos for chemistry. Another unmistakable sign that two people are truly meant for each other is a profound sense of understanding without constant explanation. It's subtle, almost invisible, but it shapes every interaction. You start noticing that she gets you in ways few people ever have, not because she's psychic, but because she listens differently, observes differently, and responds with genuine insight rather than judgment. Think about it. In most relationships, you find yourself constantly clarifying, justifying, or defending your thoughts and feelings. You wonder if you're being misunderstood, or worse, ignored. But when alignment is real, much of that effort evaporates. Conversations flow. Misunderstandings still happen, of course, but they resolve quickly because both of you approach communication with curiosity rather than suspicion. You feel heard without having to fight for it. This deep understanding also extends to nonverbal cues. A glance, a tone of voice, even a pause communicates volumes. You don't need to explain everything. She senses your hesitation, your excitement, your tension, and responds appropriately. That kind of intuitive attunement isn't accidental. It develops when both people consistently show up emotionally and pay attention to subtle patterns of behavior over time. Psychologically, this sense of being understood creates a unique safety in vulnerability. You can share thoughts that feel risky or embarrassing, and instead of judgment, you receive presence and consideration. That doesn't mean every conversation is easy or that all your insecurities vanish. It means you can risk openness and still feel seen, not shamed or dismissed. That is a rare, almost sacred space. Closely tied to this is the way humor and joy naturally weave into the connection. When understanding is deep, laughter arises effortlessly, even in difficult moments. It's not forced or performative. It's a shared recognition of life's absurdities and imperfections. You notice how effortless these small moments feel and how they restore balance after tension. Humor, in these cases, isn't just entertainment. It's a subtle indicator that emotional alignment is present. Another layer of this is synchronicity in priorities and values. You may still have different hobbies or routines, but fundamental principles, respect, integrity, loyalty, curiosity, align in ways that guide decisions naturally. When these core values match, compromise doesn't feel like sacrifice. Boundaries aren't battlegrounds. They are agreements that honor both people's needs. And here's a psychological truth many men never fully grasp. When someone truly aligns with you, they challenge you, but without threatening your identity. They encourage growth, reflection, and accountability. But the way they do it strengthens your self-esteem, instead of eroding it. Growth becomes a shared journey rather than a personal struggle. Finally, you notice patience, both in the relationship and in each other. There's a slow, deliberate pace to intimacy that feels intentional rather than rushed. You can sit together in silence without awkwardness. Decisions about the future, about emotions, about commitments, they unfold naturally, guided by mutual respect and timing rather than pressure or fear. This calm, intuitive understanding, the laughter, the patience, the nonverbal attunement, is one of the quietest yet most powerful markers of a bond that's meant to last. It doesn't announce itself with fireworks, but when you recognize it, you realize it's far more profound than anything temporary excitement can offer. Another sign that two people are truly meant for each other is the way they handle absence. This isn't about jealousy or insecurity, it's about trust and emotional clarity. When time apart comes, whether a few hours or a few days, there isn't panic or obsessive checking. You don't feel the need to fill every quiet moment with messages, calls, or social proof. Instead, absence becomes a space to miss each other without anxiety. This happens because a genuine bond isn't dependent on constant validation. You know where you stand, and she knows the same. That sense of security allows both of you to exist independently while remaining emotionally connected. You're not tethered by fear, you're tethered by choice, and that choice feels effortless, not burdensome. You'll also notice that your conversations deepen naturally over time. There's a rhythm where meaningful topics emerge without force. You can discuss hopes, fears, or past experiences without feeling judged or defensive. And interestingly, even difficult subjects, regret, disappointment, or vulnerability, become opportunities for understanding rather than triggers for conflict. Closely tied to this is the sense that time together isn't transactional. You don't measure quality by the number of hours spent side by side. Every moment carries weight because presence is intentional. Whether it's a long walk, a quiet dinner, or simply sitting in the same room, there's a sense of shared energy, a quiet resonance that doesn't demand constant stimulation. Another subtle but profound indicator is emotional regulation. When two people are aligned, emotional highs and lows are not destructive. You can feel frustrated, sad, or anxious, and she can respond without escalating the emotion. Similarly, her emotions are met with steadiness rather than reactivity. This is not perfection. This is maturity. It's the difference between two people emotionally surviving each other and two people thriving together. You also notice empathy in action, not just in words. She senses when you need space or support. She responds appropriately, not according to obligation, but because she genuinely understands your needs, and you do the same for her. These small acts, the pauses, the attentiveness, the gentle checks, compound into a feeling of being consistently valued, seen, and understood. And there's something quietly transformative about this dynamic. It allows personal growth without pressure or guilt. You don't have to suppress ambitions, desires, or curiosity to maintain closeness. You don't feel the subtle pull to adapt unnaturally to maintain harmony. Instead, your individuality is preserved, and your bond becomes richer because of it. Finally, you start noticing patterns in the way you support each other. It isn't about grand gestures or heroic acts. It's in the consistency, the texts that make sense, the check-ins that arrive at just the right time, the empathy when words fail. These moments, almost invisible, are the glue that confirms alignment at a deep level. Absence, presence, empathy, and trust. These combine to create a rare stability in connection. And stability in love, as quiet as it feels, often proves to be far more powerful than passion alone. It's the backbone of relationships that endure, not because they avoid challenges, but because they navigate them together with steadiness and intention. One of the most compelling signs that two people are truly meant for each other is how naturally they inspire growth without triggering defensiveness. When alignment is real, encouragement doesn't feel like criticism, and honesty doesn't feel like judgment. You can express your ambitions, insecurities, or doubts, and she responds not with resistance or disapproval, but with curiosity and support. In turn, you do the same for her. This mutual reinforcement isn't accidental. It's a reflection of deep emotional compatibility. You might notice that this growth isn't always dramatic. It doesn't necessarily mean life-altering transformations overnight. Instead, it's in the small, consistent ways each of you pushes the other to be more self-aware, more resilient, more conscious of choices and values. A word here, a gentle nudge there, a shared reflection over coffee or in quiet conversation, these are the subtle markers of alignment. And the most striking part, it feels effortless, never forced. You don't have to manipulate or strategize to maintain progress. The relationship itself becomes a framework for improvement. Closely linked to this is the presence of mutual admiration. Not superficial flattery, but a quiet, profound respect for the other's mind, character, and integrity. You start recognizing the small qualities that often go unnoticed. Her calm in moments of chaos, his thoughtfulness in decision-making, the way each of you approaches challenges. This admiration doesn't lead to complacency or idolization. Instead, it motivates both partners to rise toward their best selves. It's an energy that's inspiring without being oppressive. At the same time, humor and lightness remain central. Even amidst serious conversations or stressful situations, laughter flows naturally, almost like a release valve for tension. It's not about avoiding reality. It's about the emotional resilience that comes with genuine alignment. Shared laughter is often one of the strongest, most underrated indicators of connection. It signals not only comfort, but an intuitive understanding of each other's rhythms, timing, and emotional landscapes. Another unmistakable sign is empathy that goes beyond words. When one of you struggles, the other senses it without needing constant explanation. This is different from simple sympathy or surface-level caring. It's a resonance that requires attentiveness, patience, and emotional presence. You begin to anticipate each other's needs in ways that don't feel invasive or controlling. You adjust naturally, subtly, almost without thinking. Boundaries, too, are respected intuitively. Neither partner feels the need to overstep, manipulate, or enforce compliance. Independence is preserved without creating distance. Space is given freely because trust is already established. This respect for autonomy, combined with emotional closeness, creates an almost paradoxical sense of unity, togetherness that doesn't suffocate, and individuality that doesn't alienate. Perhaps the most profound indicator of true alignment, however, is the way challenges are faced collectively. Life will always bring stress, disagreements, and unexpected circumstances. But in relationships where people are truly meant for each other, these moments don't fracture the bond. Conflict becomes a shared problem to solve, rather than a personal battle to win. Emotional regulation, empathy, and the pattern of mutual respect we've discussed make it possible to navigate difficulties without fear, resentment, or recrimination. Finally, there's a subtle but undeniable ease in everyday life together. Tasks, conversations, and shared routines flow with a rhythm that feels right. You're not constantly calculating, testing, or questioning. Presence feels rewarding in itself. That's not to say everything is perfect, but the relationship carries an innate sense of coherence and stability. The energy between you reinforces confidence, growth, and emotional equilibrium. When you look at all of these signs together, mutual growth, admiration, humor, empathy, respected boundaries, and collaborative problem solving, you begin to see a pattern. Real alignment isn't loud. It doesn't rely on fireworks or obsessive intensity. It's quiet, steady, and profoundly affirming. And once you recognize it, it becomes clear why so many men chase drama and passion in search of love, missing the subtle, transformative patterns that actually sustain it over a lifetime. Finally, the seventh and perhaps most profound sign that two people are truly meant for each other is the feeling of being fully accepted, flaws, quirks, and all, without the need to perform or protect. This isn't about blind tolerance or ignoring red flags. It's about a deep, intuitive understanding that each of you is allowed to exist as a whole person, and that this wholeness is not only recognized, but valued. You feel seen in a way that doesn't come with judgment, correction, or manipulation, and she feels the same. That kind of acceptance creates a rare emotional freedom that fundamentally changes how you relate, not just to each other, but to the world around you. When acceptance is real, vulnerability becomes less risky. You can share thoughts, emotions, and desires that previously might have been buried or masked, without fear that doing so will destabilize the connection. You don't have to pretend to be someone you're not. You don't need to hide insecurities or overperform to earn approval. In relationships that aren't aligned, this kind of honesty often triggers anxiety, defensiveness, or withdrawal. But in genuinely compatible partnerships, openness is met with steadiness, attention, and compassion. Another hallmark is synchronicity in life goals and values, even when your interests or hobbies differ. It's not that you must agree on everything, far from it, but your fundamental principles line up. You naturally respect each other's ambitions and choices, and these differences don't cause friction. Instead, they enrich the connection. Decisions about career, lifestyle, and even daily routines are approached with collaboration rather than competition. This shared orientation allows both partners to thrive individually while strengthening the bond collectively. Trust deepens in a way that feels effortless and unconditional. There's no compulsive need to control, test, or measure the other's feelings. Absence doesn't trigger fear, and presence doesn't demand proof. You instinctively know that your partner's choices are guided by respect and care, just as yours are for her. This creates a rare kind of emotional stability, one that supports both freedom and intimacy simultaneously. Intimacy in this context extends beyond physical closeness. It is a psychological and emotional resonance, a quiet understanding that your inner worlds are acknowledged and valued. Small gestures, listening without distraction, remembering subtle details, responding thoughtfully, become profound indicators of alignment. These moments accumulate, creating a foundation of trust, admiration, and reliability that is almost impossible to fabricate. Perhaps most importantly, there is an enduring sense of partnership. Life's challenges, stress, uncertainty, and inevitable disagreements are faced together rather than in isolation. Conflict becomes a tool for understanding, not a weapon. Support is given freely, and accountability is mutual. You become not just lovers or companions, but teammates in the truest sense, navigating the world as a united front while honoring each other's individuality. And when you look back on the entire relationship, the emotional safety, the mutual respect, the effortless communication, the shared growth, the trust, and finally, the full acceptance, you realize that being truly aligned isn't dramatic. It doesn't scream. It doesn't demand constant proof. It simply exists, quietly, profoundly, and unmistakably. Recognizing these 7 patterns allows you to see love not as a fleeting rush of emotion, but as a steady, transformative partnership that elevates both people to their best selves.